Welcome to another edition here of our college basketball prospect talk. We're going to be talking with the one and only college basketball guru himself, Benjamin Bornstein. Ben, how's it going, man? How you doing?
Oh, I am doing well. The college basketball season has started, which means I have basketball games to watch that I truly care about, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that. What do you have for us as far as the skinny on some of these college prospects, and more importantly, maybe we have something to look forward to if you're a Spurs fan, as far as some of the other teams there that might, let's say, these picks might convey.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of talk around Cooper Flagg, deservedly so. Phenomenal player, looked great in Kentucky outside of those last two possessions. We can talk about that later if we really want to, but looked like a phenomenal prospect. Khaman Maluach, also a phenomenal prospect. 7'2", looked every bit of it. Super athletic, was blocking shots, looked fantastic. Kon Knueppel, also on Duke. That Duke Kentucky game was phenomenal. If you got a chance to watch that, that was high level basketball at the beginning of the season. You don't get to see that very often, so it was really nice. And I felt like it was finally a Kentucky game I watched where I didn't want to punch every single player and coach that was sitting on their sideline. It was great. They have a new coach, Mark Pope. I think fans are really going to like him. I think they already do like him. I think they're really going to like the players he brings in. He had to start from literal scratch. Calipari left him nobody. Half the team transferred to Arkansas. Part of the team got drafted. The other part of the team graduated. Mark Pope had no one, and they just got a signature win to start the season against the number 6 ranked Duke.
Yeah.
Phenomenal stuff. And it's great because I'm not sure they have a true NBA prospect on that roster right now. I think a couple of guys can get there by the end of the season, but just a lot of upperclassmen, I should say, who came together, played really well. It was fun to watch. It was really great. Um, Spurs can take a lot from that game, and some prospects they can look at. I think Knueppel, Flagg, and Maluach. I think all of those guys, they're looking very top 10 right now, so they might be out of the Spurs range, especially with Spurs sitting at an even 500 record right now. It's early in the season, that could change. But you mentioned the other picks that the Spurs have this year. Great news on those. They have so the Spurs have their own pick. The
Mhm.
Spurs have the Bulls pick, which is top 10 protected, and their record has them outside of the top 10 teams picking in the draft for 2025. So that's a good sign. The Hawks have a completely unprotected pick. Granted, they're about a 500 team right now or close to it, but they have a lot of injuries right now. Trey Young is out. I don't know how long, but that could force a tumble out of them. They have a couple of really nice young players on that team right now. Dyson Daniels has been playing phenomenally. The number one pick that they got, Zachary Ricochet, has been fantastic. So things are looking up, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough for them to win a whole lot of games. So if you're looking for one of the picks that's going to convey, that's probably going to be the highest, start watching the Hawks. The Hornets right now, they have a lottery protected pick, and they are projected to have the 7th pick right now. So that one, as it stands, would not convey. We have to see if the Hornets kind of get their stuff together and figure things out with LaMelo Ball and some of the other complementary pieces they have, uh, including Brandon Miller. So they have to figure that out. If that does seem to turn around and they make the playoffs, get a play-in game, bodes very well for the Spurs. They could potentially have 4 first-round picks in 2025. Just insane stuff. Brian Wright GMing masterclass for those who are not paying attention. Um, and on top of those, they have their own second rounder. They have a Bulls second rounder, and they have a Pelicans second rounder. So you're talking about potentially 7 picks
That's a
in
nice
the
perk
NBA.
to have.
The Spurs are really feeling it. If they don't get the Hornets pick, if the Hornets pick doesn't convey, they can certainly take. I don't remember if it becomes 2 second rounders or if they get another year to try and get the pick out of the Hornets. I can't remember, but either way, they can potentially package 3 second rounders and try and move up in the draft and get somebody. This is supposed to be a very good collegiate draft. There's a few overseas guys who are going to get drafted. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about them, to be honest, because I haven't watched a whole lot of them, and I'm really focused on college right now. But um, those are kind of the picks you should be looking out for. So if if you're too nervous or anxious to watch a Spurs game and you want to see other teams where the Spurs picks are impacted, Bulls, Hornets, Hawks. Hawks getting their pick no matter what. Again, Bulls top 10 protected, Hornets lottery protected. You want the Hornets and you want the Bulls to win just enough to be decent. That's it. That's what you're hoping for as a Spurs fan.
Yeah, you don't want them to be too bad, but bad enough to be out of the top 10.
Yes. You want them to maybe have a sniff at the playoffs, but not get too close.
There you go. So anything else that you got to tell us about? Because I know that you're always having your pulse when it on the college basketball scene, but especially when it comes to some of these prospects. I know everybody's always looking at the top 10, maybe top 15, top 25, but is there some players there in between that aren't getting a lot of shine that are kind of flying under the radar? That's not only Spurs fans but basketball fans as a whole should be keeping an eye on that. These players might make some noise.
Well, it's funny you say that because there is a guy locally for Spurs fans, Trey Johnson at Texas, 6'6" shooter, great at all three levels. Um, has to has to improve as a defender, but 6'6" has good size, can shoot it off the ball, creates for himself. Really good at exploiting mismatches. It's only been 3 games, but he is averaging 25 a game
Nice.
on pretty good shooting splits. So if you're looking for local games to watch the Texas Longhorns, especially now that they're in the SEC. You're actually going to watch Texas play potentially a different brand of basketball than what you've seen them play in the Big 12. So I'm also actually curious how the team and how Trey Johnson respond to that because the SEC tends to be much more of an up and down, run the court kind of game, whereas the Big 12 is a little more plodding. There's a little more half court. You have to execute better in the half court. Games maybe not as high scoring.
Yeah.
So that's one guy I've got to look at. I think I think a lot of people see him as a top 10 right now though. So we'll see if that changes. You kind of have the guys I mentioned earlier from Duke. You have a couple of guys. You have one or two guys from Arkansas. Boogie Fland, point guard, 6'4", 6'5", I think. He's projected right now, kind of near the end of the first round. So maybe somebody to watch there. But a guy who I've really enjoyed watching. I see his highlights. I try and catch a game when I can. Igor Demin out of BYU. Man, he's been fantastic. He is like a 6'9" point forward. He does everything for BYU. He's a freshman. He does not play like a freshman. He's incredibly poised. His start at the free throw line is very concerning. I think he's shooting something like under 30%, but his shooting percentages elsewhere are fine for the most part. He's been just a fantastic playmaker for them. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's averaging something like 7 assists and he's scoring in the teens. So he's just been awesome. It's so much fun to watch. The vision is great, and even after 1 or 2 games, there was a lot of talk about him even before the season started. People were talking about the secret scrimmages and stuff, which is absurd. But everybody was saying he performed amazing. He didn't look like a freshman at all, and he's done that in the first couple games for BYU. And now he's shooting up boards. So he's a guy who may be out of the Spurs range by the end of the season.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about guys who are probably closer to being in the Spurs range of picks here, a couple of guys I have circled. I have Liam McNeely out of UConn, originally an Indiana commit, but Mike Woodson got fired, decommitted, got out of his national letter of intent, signed with UConn. especially since they had a few guys go pro, a few guys graduate. And UConn is still a relatively older team. They have a few guys on that team that are keeping them in contention for possibly a three-peat, which I think it would be the first three-peat since the Wooden UCLA teams. So if they pull that off, Liam McNeely will be a huge part of it. He's averaging about 14 points a game and 8 rebounds a game, um, shooting about 48% overall, 41% from three, 6'8", you know, pretty good shooter, exactly what the Spurs are looking for. They need kind of a bigger body, a guy who can shoot as a reliable shooter. The Spurs just need floor spacers for Victor Wembanyama.
They
Although,
need bucket getters, Ben. They need people that can knock down some shots.
yeah, badly.
Yeah.
Um, that's the Spurs have needed that for a while. Um, they're finally playing much better defense, which is great because that was a huge concern. Like they were basically matador defense for the last 2 or 3 years, and now they're finally really picking it up, and it's looked a lot better. And frankly, I think that's kept them in games where their offense hasn't been as good as it should be. So really good sign there. Um, Will Riley, freshman out of Illinois, 6'8", kind of a shooting guard, small forward, almost 18 points a game, 6 rebounds a game, almost 2 assists a game, shooting just over 50% from the field. And it's small sample size alert. It's only been like 3 games, but he's shooting like 69% from three, which there's no way that's holding up for the entirety of a season. So he will come back down to earth at some point, but that is a really good start and a good sign. Um, he's very much a plug and play prospect in that you can kind of throw him in there and say, just go do stuff to help this team win, and he will. You don't need to say, we have a very specific role for you. He'll just go in and he'll do whatever you need from him. And in that sense, that makes him a pretty moldable player. Um, his shooting will be the swing skill. He wasn't. I don't think he was as good a shooter in high school as he is showing right now. So if the shooting percentages stay high or even just stay decent, I think he'll have proven he's worth the taking a flyer on. Not a dominant defender, but he can guard multiple positions, probably between 2 and 4. So it's about 3 positions he can guard. Um, Kind of an interesting guy. I think after the last few drafts and how the Spurs free agency has gone, I don't think they would take a guy like this, but he might be worth a look. A bit of a Zach Collins replacement, but a guy who doesn't shoot
Ooh,
outside
Zach
of the
Collins
paint
worked
really.
bad. So anybody that can replace him, I'm a fan of.
Well, he's not a shooter by any stretch of the imagination. He shoots basically anywhere within 10 feet of the rim. But 6'8", um, depends on who you're asking. I think on the official South Carolina website, he's listed at 245 pounds, but he's a big boy. Um, Colin Murray-Boyles, he's he's averaging 20 points a game, almost 11 rebounds a game, even 2 assists a game, and a block a game. Pretty solid stuff. Again, guy who does not go out and shoot it outside of the paint. So, if he is replacing Zach Collins, he's going to be a huge bruiser. He's probably gonna bang with some of the true fives in the league, and he's gonna save Wembanyama some knee soreness and general soreness.
Yeah.
That's the dream anyway. Effective at the rim. Again, that's where most of his shots come from. He's really big. He's really strong. He very much plays under the rim. He is not a huge dunker. He is not a high flyer. He's not the super athletic guy that maybe the Spurs are looking for, but he knows what he's about. He can move people. He's immovable when he wants to be. So, again, potential Zach Collins replacement. And of course, if he's going to be on a rookie contract, it'll be much cheaper.
And there you go.
Um, so I've got him. I've got, I mentioned Kon Knueppel earlier. I think he is a deceptively good playmaker and driver. Even though he did not shoot the ball well against Kentucky, I thought he had some nice drives. I thought he used his length well because he's not particularly fast. He's not super athletic, but He used his basketball IQ, his length to kind of get around guys, get shots off that maybe he wouldn't have otherwise. He is not strictly a catch and shoot guy. I think that's what he was known for a lot, but he's not strictly that guy. Actually, another guy on UConn to watch, Alex Caravan Jr. So he's a little on the older side, but he's a forward who's actually been a surprisingly good shot blocker this year. I think he's averaging 3 or 4 blocks a game as like a 6'7", 6'8" guy. Who's and he's not defending post players. I think it's all secondary and help defense that he's getting these blocks on. So really good effort guy. He's coming from a good program like UConn, and I mean the Spurs already have good chemistry or good experience with UConn having gotten Stephon Castle from there. I'm pretty confident in saying that Spurs fans really like what they've seen from Castle so far this season. I think they're going to enjoy what else they see from him. And learning under Chris Paul certainly doesn't hurt anybody.
Yeah, the Spurs fans like people out of Kentucky, out of UConn, out of these esteemed colleges that already have their players almost NBA ready to go,
Yeah,
because of all the, I guess, the coaching that they receive, behind the scenes. You can tell these players are of a different pedigree.
yeah. And I think UConn is really getting back to that point where you say, all right, if this guy is an NBA prospect and he's coming out of UConn, I know he plays the right way. I know he's going to play hard. I know he can be selfless when he needs to be. I mean, that was the biggest thing with Stephon Castle. I think I remember in like all the interviews he was saying, I went to UConn because I wanted to win.
Yeah.
I didn't care about putting up 20 points a game or whatever. I wanted to win, and I knew they gave me the best chance to do that. But he went out and won, so they backed it up. But I think I think Dan Hurley is a much different coach than what UConn has recently had. He is much more hard nosed. He wants everybody working hard. I think it's very Popovichian in that he will call out his star player just as hard as he calls out the 15th guy on the bench. Um, he will coach everybody equally as hard, and he wants to squeeze the juice out of everybody and get the most out of everybody. So having said that, I'm going to take us to a program that has been dog garbage for a long time, but might actually be decent this year. University of Georgia, actually. They've got, I don't know how Coach Mike White is doing this because he did not do anything remotely like this at Florida, although I'm sure Florida was unwilling to pay people like they are at Georgia now. I'm not salty.
No, not at all. Not
No,
you.
not me. But Asa Newell, one of their 5-star guys that they have this season, should hopefully help them get out of basketball irrelevance. 6'10", really good forward, very quick, athletic, a little opposite of Colin Murray-Boyles. He'll get up and down the floor really quick, great athlete, bouncy, but also not a shooter, at least not yet. He may not project as one. It kind of remains to be seen. I'm going to need more sample size from him. I'd really like to see him shoot it well from the free throw line and see if he extends out and takes some elbow jumpers or a little bit of mid-range jumpers. I don't think we've seen a whole lot of that from him yet, but he is an excellent shot blocker, partly because of his athleticism. So that bodes well for him. That bodes well for Georgia, hopefully. And I would say he's probably the last of the guys that I'm keeping an eye on right now. I'm sure the list is going to change as the season goes on. There's probably going to be some breakout guys. There's probably going to be some slumps. So just a little bit of everything to keep an eye on. So that's what I've got for now, Joe.
All right. Well, thanks, Ben. We really appreciate you donating your time here to the Alamo City Sportscast, and we look forward to getting out more information from you coming in the next week or so. And we're going to have some new fun things coming through the pipe here, so keep an eye out for Ben and his college prospect talk. So for Benjamin Bornstein, I'm Joe Garcia. Thank you all for watching another College Prospect Corner. We look forward to talking with you all next week. We're out. Peace.